One of the most important reasons for standing on the shoulders of our ancestors is so that we can see even further in the distance than they were able to during the duration of time that they inhabited their physical material form in their respective lifetime campaigns. Life itself is the purpose of our existence, as we Rh-negative celestial starseed source players are eternal warriors on an endless path of being. We ourselves are the blueprint for utilizing a host of beautiful emotions connected to our heart center and creating a new world in our image, amidst an opposing sea of obsessive reactionaries caught up in social and geopolitical strife that seem could never possibly realize the overall effect of being fueled by their violence and aggression, blinded by internal strife without an ability to regulate their mental composure. The Omniversal network environment itself bends at our footsteps, for we ourselves are the sovereign integral to existence. Supreme excellence consists of breaking our enemy's resistance through a strategy that involves using intelligence rather than misguided emotionality and brawn to successfully subdue an enemy. Combining our Rh-negative power sets by forming synergetic alliances with other Starseed source players will disrupt our enemy's power and increases our strength to a point where mounting an offensive attack against us would be ill-advised for any of our opponents. Ultimate victory by means of mastering the art of supreme excellence is when battle has been thwarted through intelligence or intimidation, when there has been no destruction, no cities have been seized, and no blood has been shed. An eternal warrior wins first and battles second. Therefore, source players take advantage of opportunity, wherein we succeed when standing on advantageous ground, assessing the entire situation by observing the nuances of our opponents in order to preemptively strike. It is important to take into consideration all circumstances that create vulnerability in our opponents. Another way of thinking about standing on advantageous ground is to always be prepared by knowing our opponents so well that we can recognize even their slightest weaknesses to exploit, creating a strategy that is so inscrutable and adaptable that attempting to defeat us becomes close to impossible for our enemies. It is pointless for brave and awakened Rh-negatives to attempt to fight against the rigidity of unawakened people in their ways, or to argue against their irrational concepts. By doing so, we will only waste time, energy, and resources, as well as make ourselves unyielding and inflexible in the process. The best strategy is to simply accept the compliance and complacency found in others, outwardly displaying deference to their need for following orders from whom they deem as authority figures. On our own, however, we must work diligently to maintain our integrity, letting go of reacting impulsively and deliberately cultivating entirely new ways of thinking. The idea of self-importance is mankind's greatest enemy. Self-importance makes one's energy signature heavy, clumsy, and vain. To be an eternal warrior, one needs to be light, and to be as fluid as water. What weakens an eternal warrior is feeling offended by the deeds and misdeeds of mankind. Self-importance requires that one spend most of their life offended by something or someone. The average unawakened individual is attached to social constraints, while the brave and awakened eternal warrior is connected only to infinity. Mastering the art of supreme excellence involves shedding the heaviness of self-importance and donning the lightness of humor instead. When we feel offended, it is okay to acknowledge it, but then we must let it go, just like a sponge absorbs water and then squeezes it out. The key is not to linger with the pettiness of the offense, but to transcend the offense through the humor of viewing the system from a higher perspective. We must be present in the moment with the offense committed against us, with the pain and with the shame, but then we must release it all through laughter, as ultimately These offenses stem from mindsets that are too meager to even comprehend our actuality. Against the assault of laughter, there is no enemy that can stand against us. The core principles of supreme excellence is simply based on outsmarting our opponents. Taken to the next level, and applying it broadly and philosophically, the idea is extremely powerful and is a very effective tool for utilizing the art of fighting without fighting to subdue our enemies. The path of the eternal warrior is not about invulnerability, but rather, it is about absolute vulnerability to the world, to our life, and to our omniversal presence. An eternal warrior's lifetime campaign in this third-dimensional physical material realm is not about an imagined perfection. It is about our connection to the greater consciousness system of the universe, polarity integration, and operating from a place of neutrality. Zero-point energy is the emerald sword of the eternal warrior, and wherever it cuts, it gives life, not death. There is an enigma that exists between being a peaceful eternal warrior and also being a pacifist. Eternal warriors are not pacifists, nor are we non-violent. It's not that we are afraid to fight, nor do we believe in avoiding a confrontation with our opponents when necessary. It's that there really is no point in fighting just to prove that we can beat our opponent. We know without a shadow of a doubt that we are divinely protected and can beat anything that raises itself up against we immortals. But we would much rather teach our enemies a valuable lesson. Hence, the art of supreme excellence requires tricking the situation. It's having the wherewithal to rise above the situation, using our metaphysical mind. It's not only having the capacity to outthink our opponents, it's also the special ability to outreason our own emotions, rising above feelings of anger, jealousy, or revenge. It's a kind of emotional alchemy that we must master in the moment in order to get a grip on any situation before it escalates. Acting violently and immorally in a violent, immoral culture only perpetuates violence and immorality. Unhealthy acts beget unhealthy acts. The one who judges wisely and implements supreme excellence is precisely the one who ends the vicious cycle. The tactics and methods one uses in practicing this art can be myriad and far-reaching, and always depends on the situation. The key is to find a neutral ground within our heart center. In a worldwide culture devoid of empathy, one of the worst things one can do is to remain complacent, such as those order-following status quo junkies standing by doing nothing while allowing others to commit these extreme and shockingly wicked, brutal acts. The best course of action is to be proactive and strategically aware for emergencies, and by exhibiting wise civil disobedience against this immoral system, or even striking back in humorous ways. Civil disobedience is similar to tricking someone who wants to fight into not fighting. It's outsmarting the bully, whether that bully is the schoolyard variety, an overreaching police officer, or the state itself. We solve the problem of civil obedience by carrying out the art of supreme excellence on the powers that be, humorously shaming the system and tricking it into becoming healthier is far superior and moral than it is using fear-mongering tactics and retaliatory violence, which is inferior and immoral. The source player practicing supreme excellence is the key to undermining both violence and immorality, using the art of fighting without fighting like a surgeon's scalpel to slice open the Achilles heel of the system, not by attacking or harming humans, but by attacking and harming the unhealthy infrastructure, both psychological and physical, that is holding up the system. Supreme excellence is a celebration of trickery and satire, not weapons and violence. It's the understanding that a violent person is almost always a symbol of failure. Violence is immature at best and deadly at worst. Courage isn't about blowing up a hostile tank. Courage is becoming the sponge, absorbing the worst the system has to offer, and then wringing it out in imaginative, paradigm-crushing, comfort zone-stretching, box-flattening ways. It's mocking the powers that be themselves. It's laughing at authority and using a sincere sense of humor to dethrone self-seriousness. When confronted with war, we're conditioned to want war. But the art of supreme excellence changes the name of the game. It turns the tables on the psychosocial dynamic and power structure being played out. It kicks the embedded graphics objectification off of its throne of nothingness by changing the way the game is usually played. It propels we Rh- celestial starseeds into becoming infinite source players in the game of life, instead of finite individuals being played by the game. It is staring into the outdated mirror of the existing conditions of this world and then doing all that is necessary to bring tonality to an otherwise atonal world by using wit to overcome our opponents without ever raising our fists. Being without fear and clear of mind is the most complete and ultimate victory that we can ever have. As eternal warriors, there are many reasons for us to engage in battle. It is something that is deep within our nature. And yes, sometimes we have no choice but to resort to combative behavior. Those that zealously promote ideologies tell us that the world is a scary place. They attempt to influence our interpretation of the world to reinforce our fears, when it is fear and ignorance themselves that are the real enemies that we are up against. Fear and ignorance are the tarp that covers our understanding and stifles our self-control. We have to stare these enemies directly in the eye, because when we find ourselves finally having to resort to emotionality without it guiding us towards wisdom and logic, we have clearly run out of ideas. This is a remarkable, subtle assertion and assertion of claiming our divinity and celestial starseed omnipotence. Using our absolute power to respond to a situation with a well-timed resolution defines our very own brand of uncommon sense. Living in reaction to the negative forces which are apparent in our society, also being incognizant of how we ourselves may direct our internal force, could endanger our very existence. Responding to a negative situation with a method in place in everyday life can make the difference between life and death. Responding in a crisis is not the same as reacting to one in that. To react is unpreparedness, while responding is applying accurate knowledge in what we have studied and in how we have been trained. The manner in which we decide to manage a negative situation will involve training specific psychokinetic special abilities in conjunction with our mental and physical attributes, ultimately moving away from the burgeoning emotional weaknesses which can influence egotism and ideas of self-importance. The 5 principles of mastering the art of supreme excellence are understanding that 1. We exist, therefore anything non-existing cannot exist. 2. As solar beings, we are always here in the never-ending now moment. 3. We ourselves are everything, and everything is us. We are the end of all there ever was, and the beginning of all there ever will be. 4. Everything that we send out into the universe comes back to us because everything is a mirror of our consciousness. As observers of the infinite quantum spectrum, we ourselves create the effect. Anything that we choose to experience, we simply just envision it and we will experience it. And 5. We ourselves are the universe's response to environmental impermanence. Evolution and adaptation should be our only religion, as everything in the Omniverse changes over time. That is, everything changes except for principles 1 through 4. The obsessive reactionary individual obliterates their ability to focus while losing control of their temperament. They are out of control with their mental thoughts and physical actions. Often when we think of a warrior, the image of a seasoned hand-to-hand combatant comes into view. However, an eternal warrior that has mastered the art of supreme excellence has total confidence in taking the necessary action of least resistance in order to attain a goal and or to take a strong stance. So by mastering supreme excellence, we eternal warriors raise our emerald swords with a balanced yet committed hardline approach to bring a peaceful solution to the paradigmatic social and geopolitical problems plaguing the educational artificial reality training habitat within the 21st century of our current timeline.